welcome to the Live from South College podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen Stockham. The Live from South College podcast is your source for all South College activity, including new student information, deep dives into our 100-plus programs and certificates and degrees, tools of the trade, and even live on location from all of our campuses. Great interviews with faculty, staff, deans, and hear from South College students and alumni in their own words. From certificates all the way to doctoral degrees, catch up with Live from South College for the lighter side of helping your dreams find direction. My guest today, and really my first guest, is the president of the Competency-Based Education set. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Michael Patrick. Hi, Dr. Patrick.
Thank you, Kathleen. Great to be here today. Appreciate you having me on.
All right. So the obvious first question is, okay, what is CBE? Explain it, please, and why it's so special.
Yeah, great question. Competency-based education, CBE is essentially competency-based education. It allows students to use their existing skills, knowledge, and prior experience, and they're able to demonstrate that through a variety of assessments and our courses. They're able to go at their own pace. And so by using their experience and existing skill sets, students are able to kind of potentially work through courses at a little bit faster rate. And so, for your traditional, student who might want something that's more self-paced, this kind of offers an alternative, right? Where students are able to go at their own pace, they're able to set their own due dates and their work ahead, really based off what their schedule is. And so it's just an exciting opportunity for students to maybe experience graduate and doctoral studies in a little bit different manner than maybe they've done previously.
Okay. So tell me who your students are. I mean, are they older? Are they more established? Are they younger? Tell me a little bit more about who these students are.
Yeah, we've got students anywhere from their 20s all the way up in their 60s, possibly even in their 70s, right? Where, some are going in really different areas of their career. Some are, just getting into it, maybe in their graduate degree program a couple years in, and we've got 25, 30-year veterans in their career, possibly looking for maybe that next career stop or career advancement. We've got CEOs, we've got business owners, really from name it from A to Z, and CBE kind of brings it from a student population side.
Okay, so why would someone consider a CBE program over a more traditional doctoral program? I mean, what are the advantages for doing CBE rather than a traditional route in your opinion?
I'm going to use the words of one of our students, and it's something she told me really kind of resonated with me, and I've kind of stole this tagline, from her ever since. And what she said was, I needed a program that fit my lifestyle, where I didn't have to rearrange my lifestyle to fit a program. And, we dove more into it, and really where she said, and I'm busy, I've got kids, I've got family, I've got other responsibilities. I might not be able to submit something every Wednesday or every Sunday night at midnight, in a traditional program would. And CBE allows her, or affords her the opportunity if she wants to get up at 3 a.m. to submit her work on her own time or whatever that schedule looks like for her, she's able to do it. If she wants to take a week off, she's certainly able to do it with kind of no fear or apprehension of, hey, I've got an assignment due this week, or I'm falling behind. She really sets her own due dates and her own pacing. And she said, I would not have been able to get a doctoral degree in any other type of format other than CBE. And so I think for that type of student, listen, I've got 3 kids running around the house and going from here to there. And I would want a program like this where I'm able to set schedules, whether it's from ball games or, whatever's going on in the personal life. It allows our students that opportunity to say, what, you're adult, you're a professional. You know how to, multi-manage, task your family, your work, all the various responsibilities. Why not do the same with your school? And that's what CBE offers. And I think that's why it's kind of really exploded so fast especially over the past, 12 months. We've been doing it now for over 3 years here at South College, really just experiencing rapid growth because I think students wanted a break from a traditional in the doctoral studies and the graduate studies of, I just want to do it in a different manner.
Yeah. So it almost feels like education in the EDU space is starting to conform more to the lifestyle as opposed to you must come to campus. So that's actually really interesting. All right. So let's unpack this a little bit. So DBA, Doctor of Business Administration, does that mean, in your opinion, that the garden variety MBA is obsolete? What's the difference?
You know what? I don't think so. I think it's for different quality or different level of applicants, right? So maybe you're early in your career, right? And you're looking to get established and maybe give yourself a leg up on the competition, and maybe you want to, I would recommend a traditional MBA at that point for that student because, hey, that's a good way. Get some entry level experience. We're requiring when somebody comes into us, you're coming in where you've got that levels of experience where you've got, years of industry experience that you're coming in, right? And so our graduate requirements is they just have to have the 2.75 GPA and a master's degree already, right? And so they've already got that level of knowledge and that content expertise, but typically they've got that years of industry experience as well. The DBA is kind of that cut above. Less than 2% of the world's population has a doctoral degree. And so we're affording students the opportunity to do that, right? To go into that 2% of the world. Who doesn't want to kind of be in the lead, category and status on some aspect? And that DBA does that in the professional realm. We've got a lot of our students who want to go teach graduate and doctoral faculty work, coursework somewhere. And so they're using our degree to kind of springboard, whether it's a first career, second career, third career, whatever it is they're looking for. That DBA kind of opens up doors that maybe a traditional master's degree wouldn't do for them.
Oh, and I think that's actually a really important point because, in a lot of realms, if you don't have an MBA from a top 5 program, they won't talk to you. But in this case, you can walk in the door with a DBA, which means that you've actually had to sit down and write a dissertation. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, so what's the biggest misconception about CBE and fully asynchronous learning? And for my listeners, before you go and Google asynchronous, it means student and instructors are not together, but they're working in their own time frame. So what's the biggest misconception, in your opinion, about fully asynchronous learning?
So I think there's 2 misconceptions. One, that students don't think it's a rigorous program, right? I think anytime that you go through your online program, you're like, is it rigorous? Is it really meaning something? Is there value behind what I'm about to do? So A, yes, it's rigorous. But I think B, the second part of that is the level of faculty interaction and our program model. And our program model from a student side, it's really a 1-to-1 faculty student model in that ratio. And so the level of faculty substantive interaction that you're going to get that mentorship. You're going to connect with students, right? From the faculty side, and that student gets a one-on-one based off their learning, their knowledge, their experience. It's really almost a customized learning pathway as they're working on assessments where that faculty is working with them. And I think a lot of times there's the misconception of, well, I'm in it on my own. I'm not going to get support. Faculty aren't going to respond. I mean, our faculty respond to email within 24 hours. They're grading almost every course other than you mentioned the dissertation, that and one other course within 48 hours. I mean, you're talking rapid turnaround time and faculty who care and want to work and they want to see you excel. So I think it's really that piece that you're not in it by yourself. And we've got a wonderful student support team. I mean, they're reaching out to you continually. The dissertation, I remember when I did mine, Kathleen, it felt kind of a lonely process, a little bit of a lonely journey. I'm in there writing and everybody's having a great time everywhere else. And, I'm like, and I'm hearing all the laughter and all the, the TV, and I'm in there typing up pages and all those things. And it felt to be a lonely process, where I didn't have mentors reaching out to me on the side. My faculty weren't necessarily reaching out to me. It was really me on my own kind of driving it. Here, I think you've experienced the opposite. So maybe where you wouldn't have felt that support before, we've really tried to build that in and interlace that throughout our program where, you're going to have as much support as you'll possibly let us give you, maybe more than you want. And you can tell us to back up a little bit too. That's okay. But you're never going to wonder, do I have a support team behind me? So I don't know. I just think that's some misconceptions out there anytime you think of doing a doctorate degree.
Yeah. So what's your best advice for that you would offer someone who's just getting started with CBE, who's really right there in those first 1 and 2 classes? And also, what about support from fellow students? Is there like a buddy system? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So the biggest piece of advice I really think I would offer is just stay with it, right? Set 5-10 hours a week. No one feels like writing papers every day and every night when you're going home, right? Set a designated time. And I think that's, whether it's, church responsibilities, family responsibilities, sports responsibilities, whatever somebody has that might be going out there in the world, you have to set different timelines and deadlines for different aspects, right? I mean, that's how, the world turns. That's how we accomplish all the things that we do in our personal lives. And it's no different in your education life. Set aside some time every week. Say, you know what, this is the time I'm going to work on this course. And this is the time I'm going to work on this assignment, and really stay with that, right? And if you will just stay the course, you'll absolutely continue your journey and you'll kind of achieve that lifelong goal, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing. Just stay with it. I mean, it gets better. When I first started writing, Kathleen, I won't tell you how bad my writing was as a doctoral student. We will not publish that on the podcast by any means. I do have copies of it. I probably should have burned it a long time ago, even though it's digital. I should have found a way to burn it. But nonetheless, everybody gets better as writing, and that's just part of the process. So, stay with it, right? I mean, don't give up. Give yourself grace, right? I mean, nobody's perfect. We work with you, right? And one thing with CBE I didn't mention is you get to revise your work until it meets, mastery competency, right? So it's not like a one shot. It takes the pressure off. Hey, give it your best effort, but we'll let you know what you need to improve on, and then just continue to work on it, right? And that's part of the process of CBE, right? Is we want to make sure you've got those skills when you walk out. And so we're going to give you that time to work on it. As far as support groups, we've got a great Facebook group. Students connect in there, in and off. And so they've kind of formed their own little support groups. Some of them meet and talk offline just as a way to connect with other students. And so, we're always looking at ways to kind of, bring our students together and to find connectivity in that. Our faculty hosts lots of kind of lunch and learn sessions, and students will connect in there as well, right? So it's a good time for them to see, I'm not the only one who had that same question or maybe didn't understand that process, right? Typically, if you have the question as a student, somebody else does. And so we're trying to find ways and continue to look for different ways for students to connect.
All right. So let's go back to the dissertation, because obviously that's a huge component. So talk to me about that. It seems kind of daunting, kind of like getting a root canal for 6 months. At least that's
right.
how it sounds to me. But how does South College provide a fulfilling experience for dissertation? What tools are in place to help someone who's never written one of these before?
Well, and I would say, Kathleen, 99% of our students have never written a dissertation before, right? I mean, typically once you write one, you don't want to go back and write another one, even once you're finished, right? It's not like, hey, let me sign up for another one of those. But we do have students who've gone for multiple doctoral degrees, right? So, listen, some people are gluttons for that type of encouragement and exciting activity, and we're willing to provide it. So I think what we do is, first, let me explain what our dissertation is. It's a little bit differently with us than maybe in a traditional one. And so we require the use of what, not to get too technical, but it's called the existing use of data sets, right? And so maybe you're a K-12 teacher and you have state testing scores that have already been done out there, and you want to do some type of analyzing that type of data. You're looking at a problem, trying to solve it. Well, that data is already there. Maybe you work in an organization and your HR has done some really great results on employee engagement. And maybe you've got access to that type of data. You didn't design it, you didn't collect it, but it's already been done, right? It's already existing. It's already out there. We require students to use that. And so essentially what that does, again, trying not to get too technical, but it falls under the exempt status in IRB. And so that process of IRB, it's federally regulated, basically human subject protection, right? We want to make sure that anytime there's human subjects, involved, that their protection, that's a federally regulated activity for higher education institutions. And we follow that, to the letter of the law. However, ours falls under the exempt status, because you're really dealing with data. You're not really dealing with humans, because the data has already been collected by somebody else. That saves a student at minimum 6 to 9 months anywhere else you're going to go. By the time you would have designed the research, collected it, got permissions, all those things. It's a very lengthy process. And I've chaired dissertations. I chaired them probably for over 15 years, Kathleen, and it was a very long process. And students would pay a lot of money just to sit and wait, right? And they would wait for approval and all these different things at other institutions. And I was like, I don't want our students to do that. But not only for that reason, our students are practitioners, right? And a practitioner, they go out and they solve problems all day long, right? And so it's cutting down the time, and we're trying to focus on really what matters as a practitioner. But yet the dissertation does matter, in my opinion, for many, many degrees of an EDD and a DBA, especially, where other competitor programs have them and some don't have them, right? And a lot of the question asks for our students is, do you have a dissertation or don't? Because whether it's a right or wrong perception, there is a perception that institutions who have, or degrees who have a dissertation, it's considered more credible than those who don't. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily believe that or don't believe that, but I didn't want our students to have to make that argument, right? And that's where I wanted to make that for them of, hey, you're going to walk out with a very credible degree that's going to potentially open up doors for you. But we've got one-on-one faculty mentors. They're going to get a chair. They're going to get a committee member. They start working on it in their 9th course. We've got great research methodologists who really help set the framework. We've got incredible resources available for them. Again, I mentioned lunch and learn sessions. We do them just on the dissertation. And so every student is really different for them. And so the number of interactions, phone calls, Zoom, Teams, whatever that our faculty and chairs are doing with their dissertation students, I mean, it's pretty immense, Kathleen, right? So the only way a student's not going to get through is if they're not actually willing to write, right? We will literally help them all along the process. And right now our students are progressing, really, really well through the dissertation. We've had a lot of graduates. We continue to see more. Feels like every other day we're seeing another student kind of graduate with a degree. And that's what we want. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Students come in here wanting to graduate, earn their degree. And we want to do everything we can to help them earn that and, achieve that type of success. I mean, we want to call them doctor when they walked out of this thing. There's no greater feeling than somebody calling them doctor. And that's what we want to do.
I love it. All right. So let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been at South College?
72 years. No, this is my 6th year at South College, and absolutely love it. I've been a few different roles, and I started CBE. I came up with the idea about 4 years ago, and we launched programs 3 years ago, and been doing it ever since. And honestly, couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Okay. All right. So just on average, how many times a day do you have to explain what CBE is? I cannot wait for this answer.
Well, I think that's the only part of my job that is constant, right? Is explaining what CBE is. I don't know, literally, probably 7 to 8 times a day. But I mean, it feels like that's the only conversation I really have is explaining, I still get to talk to a lot of students. They want to talk to me, when they call in for the admissions team. And I'm always happy to oblige that, when possible. And so that's the thing. What is it? What does it actually mean for me? Everybody does CBE a little bit differently, all the institutions out there. And we certainly do. But I love explaining it, right? I mean, to me, if you're passionate about it, you love talking about it. So while it may feel like, 72 times today, it also feels like the first time that I'm getting to talk to a student as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. So the obvious question, what did you want to be when you grew up? Was this where you saw yourself, or did you want to do something else?
Well, I probably wanted to be a basketball player, but then I realized I was slow, Kathleen, and that wasn't going to work for me. And my jumping ability maybe quite wasn't what it needed to be. Now, I could shoot, but that was about it. And so there wasn't much of a career trajectory for me in that regard. And, I thought about dentistry, and then I said, not sure how I felt about that. My parents were educators. And so kind of fell in that line a little bit. And then, I really kind of higher education fell into my lap. I mean, when I went to go look for my, doctorate, Kathleen, when I was getting it, I couldn't find a place where I could go to campus anywhere within about a 2.5 hour radius while teaching school full time, having, young family at home and actually go to a place to find a doctorate. I mean, it was very difficult, back when I did mine. So I found it online, and I just fell in love with online education, what it did for me. And so that was really kind of my passion for others. I understood the doors it opened for me, and I kind of wanted to open those doors for students in their career, for their families as well.
Oh, I love that. So, okay. So the obvious question, when you're not explaining what CBE is, which seems to be a paramount of your day, what do you do in your downtime?
I don't think there is downtime. No, no, listen, I love it. Really, really spending time with my family. My boys certainly are incredibly active in sports and, things like that. And so, if I'm not talking to a student explaining what CBE is, I'm probably with my boys somewhere doing something. And really, that's kind of where my world revolves around.
So I want to thank Dr. Patrick for being my first guest. That was awesome. So everything that we've talked about, you can find on south.edu, and you can check it out and look at our competency-based program. So we did good for our first episode, and my first guest, nobody died, which is pretty awesome. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
When you start your new path at South College, you'll join students from different walks of life and at varying stages of their lives. Many students are going back to school to finish degrees, while others are pursuing elevated education that will help improve their potential in their current roles for chasing a new direction. South College offers over 100 programs and concentrations with specialized focus on associate, bachelor's, master's, educational specialists, and doctoral degrees in healthcare, business, technology, education, and legal studies.
Welcome back. South College has campuses in Knoxville, Orlando, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Nashville, Atlanta, and Asheville. And now we are excited to announce Dallas, Texas, with the campus opening spring of 2025. Enroll today. See south.edu for more information. See you next time.